Ethan Caldwell had always believed that life rewarded those who planned every detail, and for years he thought he had done exactly that, marrying Maya, the quiet, soft-spoken woman who supported him through college, through his first job, through every late night when he doubted himself, and now through the pressures he faced at the booming tech firm where he worked as a rising executive. But somewhere along the climb, Ethan convinced himself that loyalty mattered less than momentum, and that appearance mattered more than the quiet sacrifices of the woman who loved him. Maya had noticed the shift, the sudden late nights, the locked phone, the cold tone, the absence of warmth in his eyes. She tried not to assume the worst, even when her hands trembled each morning as she prepared his breakfast, even when her heart sank as she watched him dress with an excitement that had nothing to do with coming home to her. Still, she stayed gentle. Still, she prayed things would settle. Still, she kept quiet about the nausea, the dizziness, the doctor's words echoing in her head. "You're expecting triplets. Congratulations." She had planned to tell him with a smile, with tears, with hope. But the very day she tried, Ethan walked into the living room with a coldness that chilled her more deeply than winter wind. He didn't sit. He didn't hesitate. He simply said, "Maya, I want a divorce." Her breath fractured, but she held herself together. She asked him why, though her trembling voice already knew the answer. He didn't bother lying. He said he had met someone more fitting for the future he imagined. A woman named Betrayal, glamorous, wealthy, confident, and nothing like Maya. He spoke as if he was reading a memo rather than breaking a heart. Maya listened without interrupting, her soul splintering inside her chest, her mind screaming at her to reveal the pregnancy, to beg him to reconsider, to show him the ultrasound, to plead for her family. But she swallowed those words. Not because she didn't want him, but because in that moment, she realized that any man who could abandon her so easily did not deserve to know the miracle growing inside her. And so she signed the papers, quietly, calmly, dignified, even as her world collapsed. Ethan walked out with a smile, believing he had freed himself. He kissed Betrayal in the parking lot as Maya watched from the window, her hand unconsciously resting on her belly, promising her unborn children that they would never beg for love the way she once did. She left the apartment that night, unaware that destiny had already begun shifting in her favor. She had a message waiting from her late grandmother's attorney, a message that said she needed to attend a reading of the will. Maya almost didn't go. Her heart was too heavy, her body too weak. But something pushed her forward. And when she entered the grand law office the next morning, she stared in shock at the rows of lawyers, at the enormous folders on the table, at the amount of security standing silently against the wall. When she sat down, the attorney smiled gently, as though he knew the storm she had survived. "Maya," he said, "your grandmother left everything to you." Maya blinked, confused. Everything? Her grandmother had lived a simple life, or so she thought. But what followed changed everything. The attorney revealed records, accounts, deeds, and silent investments. Her grandmother had been a hidden titan in real estate, technology, and global philanthropy. Maya inhaled sharply as the numbers flashed across the screen, numbers she never imagined would be attached to her name. $100 million, a fortune that rightfully belonged to her, a fortune that would secure her children's future, a fortune Ethan would never know about. Tears filled her eyes, not because of the money, but because her grandmother had trusted her with a legacy built over a lifetime. When Maya left the office, she no longer walked like the fragile woman Ethan left behind. She walked with a fierce determination, her hand protectively on her belly, her step steady. She moved into a private estate arranged by the attorneys, hired medical staff for the high-risk pregnancy, and began preparing for the life she deserved. Meanwhile, Ethan and Betrayal flaunted their new romance across social media, posing in restaurants, traveling, celebrating their engagement only 2 weeks after the divorce. Ethan felt untouchable until the day he saw Maya again. It was accidental. He was stepping out of a luxury jewelry store with Betrayal when he spotted Maya across the street, accompanied by elite security guards and a private driver. She looked radiant, glowing, dressed in a flowing emerald gown. But what froze him wasn't her beauty, it was the unmistakable curve of her pregnant belly. Ethan's world tilted. Brielle laughed beside him, oblivious, but Ethan felt his throat tighten. Maya lifted her head and their eyes met. And for the first time in his life, he felt small, like a man who had chosen glitter over gold, illusion over truth. He took a step forward, but Maya simply nodded politely, got into her car, and disappeared. That night he couldn't sleep. The next day he confronted Maya's cousin, asking questions he had no right to ask. And what he learned shattered him. The babies were his. She was carrying triplets. She had inherited a massive fortune. She was no longer the woman he abandoned. She was stronger, wealthier, more respected, and more powerful than he ever dreamed. Panic swallowed him. Regret suffocated him. He showed up at her new residence without appointment, only to be stopped by security. He begged to see her, but Maya, sitting in her quiet living room, sipping tea prepared by her private chef, simply said, "No. Tell him I wish him well." The guard returned with the message, and Ethan's face crumbled. The door closed on him, physically and symbolically, and the realization stabbed him deeper than any blade. He had walked away from the truest love he ever had, from the family he didn't know he wanted, from a destiny that was meant to be his. And Maya? She felt no triumph, only peace. Because healing wasn't revenge, it was choosing herself. And as her babies kicked gently inside her, she whispered a promise to them. "You will grow in love, not in pain." Months passed, like pages turning in a book Maya no longer feared reading. And as her due date approached, the estate transformed into a calm fortress of protection, with nurses, doctors, and staff always on standby. Her stomach had grown beautifully. Each kick a reminder of strength, each heartbeat a confirmation that she had walked away from the darkness into a sunrise she built herself. The triplets were healthy, strong, and full of life. But while Maya prepared for motherhood, Ethan's world was collapsing one brick at a time. His engagement with Brielle had become a battlefield of hidden agendas. She had chased him not for love, but for access to his company, his social connections, his fragile ego she could mold into something she controlled. When she learned Maya was pregnant with triplets, Brielle pretended not to care, but jealousy twisted her face in private. She demanded Ethan cut all thoughts of Maya, claiming she was no threat and just the past. But Ethan couldn't forget. Every time he closed his eyes, Maya's calm, powerful stare haunted him. Every time a pregnancy ad appeared on TV, he felt a guttural ache of guilt. He tried to push it away, tried to remind himself of the life he had chosen. But fate had a different plan. One morning, Ethan arrived at the office to find chaos. Papers everywhere. The company accountant in tears. Reporters gathering outside. Brielle had drained the company's accounts, forging Ethan's approval, and disappeared. Millions lost. His job lost. His reputation shattered. By noon, he was broke. By evening, he was homeless. And by nightfall, he understood what karma felt like. He sat on a park bench in the cold, staring up at the sky, whispering Maya's name, not in hope, but in remorse. But while Ethan fell, Maya rose. Her doctors informed her that the triplets might arrive early, and she began daily health checks. She spent evenings preparing their room, a soft, warm sanctuary with pastel colors and tiny clothes arranged lovingly in rows. She read to them, prayed for them, dreamed for them. Yet a small part of her wondered whether Ethan, the man she once loved, would ever become someone the children could safely know. Fate answered in a dramatic way. One rainy afternoon, while Maya was reviewing new charity plans with her legal team, her security chief rushed in, whispering urgently. Maya's eyes widened. "Where is he?" she asked softly. "At the gates," the guard replied. "He looks destroyed." Maya took a breath. She hadn't expected to see Ethan again, not like this. But something in her heart nudged her, curiosity, closure, or maybe the quiet strength motherhood had. Carved into her, she followed the guards to the front courtyard, where Ethan stood drenched, shivering, his clothes muddy, his eyes hollow. The moment he saw her, he crumbled to his knees. "Maya, please," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I lost everything." Maya didn't step closer. She didn't comfort him. Instead, she stood tall, her hands resting on her pregnant belly. "Ethan," she said calmly, What you lost was the life you chose over me. I didn't take anything from you, he sobbed, guilt crashing over him. I didn't know you were pregnant, he cried. I didn't know about the triplets. I didn't know about the inheritance. I didn't know— Maya cut him off gently. You didn't care to know? Silence. Fell, heavy, honest. Ethan lowered his head. You don't have to take me back, he said. I don't deserve it. But please, let me be in their lives. Let me at least try to be a father. Maya felt her heart squeeze, not for him, but for the children. She didn't answer immediately. We will discuss that after they're born, she said finally. For now, go clean yourself. You're shaking. She instructed the staff to give Ethan a warm meal, a shower, fresh clothes, and temporary shelter in one of the guest houses. She wasn't forgiving him. She wasn't rekindling anything. But she wasn't cruel either. Ethan watched her walk away, protective and glowing, and he whispered a silent vow to himself he would earn the right to know his children. But life was never simple. At midnight, Maya woke up with sharp pains in her abdomen. Her breath hitched. The triplets were coming, too early. The estate exploded into emergency action. Nurses rushed in, the doctor was called instantly, and Maya was lifted carefully onto a stretcher. Ethan, in the guest house, heard the alarms and ran barefoot across the courtyard, shouting her name. But the guards blocked him until Maya's doctor gave permission for him to wait outside the delivery wing. Hours passed like years. Maya screamed through contractions, tears soaking her pillow, her hands gripping the rails as the doctor coached her through the high-risk birth. You're strong, Maya. You can do this. Outside, Ethan paced back and forth, praying, shaking, blaming himself for every struggle she faced. And then 3 cries filled the air. 3 perfect, powerful, beautiful cries. The doctor stepped out moments later, smiling. She did it. They're safe. Ethan broke down, sobbing into his hands. When Maya finally held her 3 babies, 2 boys and 1 girl, she felt a warmth deeper than anything she had ever known. She whispered their names with trembling lips, kissing their tiny foreheads as tears of joy streamed down her cheeks. The nurse approached softly. The father is outside, she said. Should I let him see them? Maya hesitated. Her heart battled with her mind. The babies deserve safety, but they also deserve truth. Finally, she nodded. Ethan entered the room slowly, his eyes red, his hands shaking. The moment he saw the triplets, tiny, perfect, wrapped in soft blankets, he fell to his knees before their crib. I'm sorry, he whispered. I will spend my whole life making sure you never feel the pain your mother felt. Maya watched him quietly. For the first time, she saw sincerity, not manipulation, not charm, not ego. Just a man broken by his own choices and rebuilt by the sight of his children. Over the next weeks, Ethan worked tirelessly to rebuild himself. He took therapy, accepted small jobs, apologized deeply, not just with words, but with actions. And slowly, cautiously, Maya allowed him supervised time with the babies. Not as a partner, not as a friend, but as a father learning humility. Months later, at the triplets' first formal checkup at the estate gardens, Maya looked at Ethan holding one baby while a nurse held the others. He was gentle, patient, present. She didn't love him. Not anymore. But she respected the father he was trying to become. And Ethan, finally understanding the weight of true love, looked at Maya with gratitude, not possession. Thank you, he said quietly, for giving me a chance to be part of their lives. Maya nodded. They deserve both parents. But remember, love is earned, not demanded. The sun set behind them, painting the sky in gold. A new chapter had begun, not of romance, but of healing, co-parenting, and growth. And as the triplets giggled in the fading daylight, Maya smiled at the future she created with her own strength. The months following the triplets, birth flowed like a river transitioning from storm to calm, carrying with it the remnants of heartbreak, healing, and the slow rebuilding of shattered lives. Maya blossomed in motherhood, glowing with a strength that radiated in every tender kiss she placed on her children's foreheads, every late-night feeding, every whispered prayer that they would grow, without ever feeling the pain she endured. The estate was no longer just a grand inheritance. It became a sanctuary of love, warmth, and purpose. Yet beneath that peace, a quiet tension lingered because Ethan, despite his transformation, was still learning what it meant to rebuild trust from ashes. He arrived every morning on time, sometimes too early just to sit outside and listen to the babies coo from the nursery window. He was gentle with them, feeding them, rocking them, even learning how to braid the little girl's soft curls with trembling fingers. Maya observed silently, her heart conflicted, proud of the father he was becoming, but still wary of the husband he once was. She was no longer the woman who begged for affection. She was the woman who commanded respect simply by standing tall. And yet, life had more storms to test the strength she had gained. One afternoon, during a charity gala hosted in her grandmother's honor, Maya stood confidently on stage, holding her daughter on her hip while her sons sat in their stroller nearby. The audience applauded her speech, admiring her grace and resilience. Ethan stood among the guests, holding his head high, not because of pride, but because he finally understood the value of humility. However, the calm was shattered when a man slipped through the crowd, his eyes sharp, filled with greed. His name was Victor Hale, the estranged business partner of Maya's grandmother, a man who believed the inheritance should have been his. For months he had been trying to gain access to the estate, harassing the lawyers, threatening lawsuits, and spreading rumors that Maya was unfit to handle such wealth. And today, at the gala, he decided to confront her publicly. "That inheritance doesn't belong to you," Victor snarled, stepping onto the stage uninvited, startling the guests. Maya stiffened, clutching her daughter protectively as security rushed forward. "Your grandmother made a mistake," he continued loudly. "You're young. You're emotional. You're incapable of running her empire." Ethan instantly moved toward the stage, his protective instincts roaring alive. But Maya raised her hand lightly, quietly stopping security from dragging Victor away. She stepped forward with a calmness that intimidated even her accuser. "My grandmother trusted me," she said, her voice steady, carrying through the hall. "And I have honored that trust every day. But you—" Her eyes locked onto Victor with quiet fire. "You abandoned her when she needed you most. You betrayed her. You don't deserve her legacy." Victor's face twisted with rage, and in a moment of recklessness, he lunged toward her. Gasps filled the room. But before he could reach the stage steps, Ethan slammed into him, tackling him to the ground with a force that echoed across the hall. Security swarmed in, dragging Victor away as he shrieked threats. Maya's heart thundered in her chest as she watched Ethan stand, breathing heavily, eyes blazing with a protectiveness she hadn't seen in years. When their eyes met, something electric passed between them. Not romance, not longing, but unspoken understanding. Later, as the triplets slept peacefully in the estate nursery, Maya sat by the window with Ethan standing quietly nearby. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice carrying gratitude and caution. Ethan turned toward her, his expression solemn. "I didn't protect you when I should have," he said, "but I will now, always, whether you forgive me or not." His honesty struck her harder than any apology. She didn't answer. Instead, she looked down at her hands, hands that had wiped tears, lifted babies, rebuilt her life. "People can change," she said finally. "But trust takes time." Ethan nodded, accepting her truth. Days turned into weeks, and the legal case against Victor strengthened. Maya hired a top investigation team, uncovering years of fraud Victor had committed, ensuring he would never threaten her or the children again. Meanwhile, Ethan continued proving himself, not with empty promises, but with consistent presence. He attended parenting classes, took business training courses, and began helping with Maya's growing charity projects. He didn't push for romance, didn't pressure her, didn't expect anything beyond the chance to be the father his children deserved. And slowly, very slowly, Maya's walls began to lower, not for love, but for hope. One evening, after a long day of meetings, she found Ethan in the garden with the triplets, showing them how to touch flower petals gently, how to laugh at butterflies. The sunset painted them in a golden glow, and for the first time, she saw not the man who left her, but the man who fought to return to the right path. When he noticed her watching, he didn't smile arrogantly like he once did. He simply offered a small, humble smile, a smile that asked nothing and spoke volumes. She walked toward him, the soft breeze lifting her hair, and sat beside him on the grass. "They love you," she said quietly. Ethan looked down at the children, his eyes glistening. "I love them more than I ever loved myself," he whispered. Silence settled between them, warm and safe. Maya took a breath. "Ethan, we'll never be who we were," she said gently. Ethan nodded without hesitation. "I know, but we can be something better," she continued, surprising even herself. "Not as husband and wife, but as partners in raising them." Ethan swallowed hard, emotion tightening his voice. "That's all I ever wanted now." And as the triplets giggled, crawling into both their laps, Maya felt something inside her shift. Not love, not reconciliation, but peace. A new beginning not defined by romance, but by growth, maturity, and shared purpose. That night, she stood on the balcony alone, watching the stars glitter above the estate her grandmother left behind. "Thank you," she whispered into the wind, knowing her grandmother was listening, "for giving me the strength to rise." And down in the garden, Ethan rocked the triplets to sleep, whispering promises of protection into the night. Dear viewers, if this chapter touched your heart and you want to see the next dramatic twist in this evolving journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Chapter 4 will take these characters into entirely new challenges, triumphs, and emotional turns you won't want to miss.